Hour number 2 of the lunch break. You're on KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert with you. One more hour for us here on the program. Producer Evan is behind the glass taking your phone calls. 480-864-1060 is the way for you to join us here on the program. I want to dive back into the Arizona Diamondbacks and talk about their future because we are in a bit of a transition period with this team right now. 2025 was supposed to be a year they got back to the postseason, that they maybe held serve with the Dodgers. And if they got into the postseason, who knows, they could very easily have gone on a run very similarly to 2023. That was where this team was supposed to go. We all know how the story played out. We all know that none of that ended up happening. We know that at the deadline, this team moved their starting first baseman, moved their starting third baseman, moved one of their starters, moved a bullpen arm. We know the injuries that plagued this club. Not going to have Corbin Burns for most of next year coming back from the Tommy John surgery. Going to be without two of their strong relievers for a good chunk of 2026. Coming back from Tommy John surgery. And so they sold at the deadline and they put themselves in a little bit of limbo. And I've been on record saying that I think 2026 can still be a competitive season. But there's a new window that needs to be built here. And I've long said that the reason why I am on the record with 2026 still being a year where this team can be competitive is because this team, while trading a bunch of talent away at the deadline, still has a really solid young core. And maybe not totally young core, but a really solid core that they can build around. That can be the centerpiece, that can be the engine to a team that gets back to the postseason. Need any more proof of that? ESPN updated, they did an in-season update of their MLB rankings for baseball's top 50 players. And the Arizona Diamondbacks had 3 players in the top 50. They had Corbin Carroll, the 18th best player in all of baseball. Ketel Marte, the 20th best player in all of baseball. So the Arizona Diamondbacks, 2 of the top 20 players in the game, 2 of the top 20 players in the game in 2025 play for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then they also had Geraldo Perdomo, who was on this list as well at player number 44. And they shouted out that Perdomo's already at 3.7 WAR, the highest of his career, and that he could be 3 or 4 wins above replacement for the foreseeable future. But the Diamondbacks have a shortstop, have a second baseman, have a right fielder, have 3 offensive spark plugs inside the top 50 best players in Major League Baseball. On this list of 50, there were 10 teams in baseball that had at least 3 players on it. The Diamondbacks were one of those 10. Now, Producer Evan, I want to do a little bit of an exercise here with everybody, if it's all right with you. I want to go through the top 20, and I want us to keep track of how many other teams have multiple players in the top 20 the way the Diamondbacks do. They had Corbin Carroll at 18. They had Ketel Marte at 20. So we need to keep track of this. Aaron Judge was number 1 for the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani was number 2 for the Dodgers. Tariq Skubal was number 3 for the Tigers. Kyle Rowley was number 4 for the Mariners. Bobby Witt Jr. number 5 for the Royals. Paul Skeens number 6. So 6 so far, 6 different teams. Pete Crow Armstrong, 7 for the Cubs. Jose Ramirez for the Guardians, number 8. Zach Wheeler for the Phillies, number 9. Garrett Crochet for the Red Sox, number 10. 10 different teams represented in the top 10. Kyle Tucker for the Cubs. Okay, the Cubs, one team that has 2 players in the top 20. Number 12 is Juan Soto for the Mets. First time we've heard from them. The Padres, Fernando Tatis. First time we're hearing from them, correct? Kyle Schwarber, 14 for the Phillies. Okay, that's a second team. Ellie De La Cruz is 15. Will Smith of the Dodgers is 16. There's Manny Machado, 17. And then you have the Diamondbacks. So 5 teams. So 10 teams in total had at least 3 players on this list. Diamondbacks were one of those 10. You shrink it down to the top 20. There were 5 teams that had players multiple players in the top 20. The Diamondbacks were among that group as well. And guess what? Ketel Marte's not going anywhere. Corbin Carroll's not going anywhere. Geraldo Perdomo is not going anywhere. Marte, contract extension done this year. Perdomo, contract extension done in spring training. Corbin Carroll signed to a super mega contract extension way ahead of time. Those three guys locked in, locked down, not going anywhere. That's your future. That's why being sellers at the deadline did not make me want to give up on 2026. You have two of the best players in baseball. You have two top 20 players in baseball. You have three top 50 players in baseball. There are 30 teams in the sport. You are one of 10 teams to have at least three players on this list. You're one of only 5 teams in the entire sport to have 2 players inside the top 20. The way out of a sticky situation or the way out of a transition period is you got to have superstars. Hence why, for the Phoenix Suns, so much is resting on the shoulders of Devin Booker. Because his play, his superstardom, could be the lighter fluid that accelerates that process. That if he now, with no Kevin Durant, with no Bradley Beal, just takes over and becomes that superstar that we know that he can be and has been in the past, then they could be ahead of the curve. They could get through this retool, rebuild, however we're describing it, quicker than anticipated. The same thing applies to the Diamondbacks. The best way for them to dig out of what happened in 25, to dig out of what happened barely missing the playoffs in 2024, is going to be on the backs of their superstars. It's going to be on the backs of 2 players that are in the top 20 in all of baseball. And I don't think there's any argument. Does anybody want to argue that Corbin Carroll is back to being one of the best players in all of baseball? Does anybody want to argue about Ketel Marte being a perennial MVP candidate year in and year out? And Perdomo's a young player that's joining that fold. Now, you will notice that those 3 players are all on offense. They're still lagging in the pitching department. But when you have 3 players in the top 50 in all of baseball, think about this, 26-man rosters, 30 teams. Do that quick math. The top 50 is the upper quartile of the upper quartile. To quote the late Jim Irsay with one of my favorite quotes of all time. The top 50 players in baseball is the upper quartile of the upper quartile. And the top 20 is the upper quartile of the upper quartile of the upper quartile. The Diamondbacks have 2 players sitting in that spot. That should be what gives you confidence about the future for this club. That you have the superstars, that you have the players, that if we were doing a athletic-related QB tiers list and we were tiering the players in baseball, I think we would say that Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte are players that can put an entire team on their back. That when they get hot, when they're playing their best brand of baseball, they can carry an offense. They can carry a team. And the Diamondbacks have 2 of those players. The Diamondbacks have 2 superstars that fit that bill. Think about how many teams don't have a player in the top 20. Producer Evan, I didn't mention a Chicago White Sox in the top 20. I didn't mention they're the best team in baseball. I didn't mention a Milwaukee Brewer in the top 20.
I was just going through and seeing how many teams are left off the list. Like Washington gets in there, they have 1 in James Wood. There's so many teams that
there are 7 teams in total, 7 that don't have a single player in the top 100. The White Sox, the Angels, the Rays, the Braves, the Rockies, the Brewers, And the Cardinals, they don't have a single player. You have 3 in the top 50. You have 2 in the top 20. That is your first-class ticket out of this mess.
Read me the teams again that don't have them.
Chicago,
Yep.
the Angels,
Okay.
the Rays, the Braves, the Rockies, the Brewers, the Cardinals.
It's what, 4 teams that have a better record than you, though?
The 4 teams would be Milwaukee,
Milwaukee,
St. Louis,
the Cardinals. I guess you're tied with the Angels, and the Rays have a better record.
I'm not saying that it's perfect.
Also, how is Junior Caminero not in the list?
I didn't make the list. Don't come after me. Okay. I just read the list.
Sorry.
I didn't make the list. We do lists. We do top 5s on Wednesdays. Okay. I didn't make this one.
Sorry, that was off topic.
No, that's fine. But you're coming after me. I didn't make the list. Okay. But you have a unique, think about being Colorado today. Think about being Chicago today or the Angels today. Those fan bases, they don't have a way out. By the way, think about this. The Angels have Mike Trout and he's not on this list. Just think about that.
I thought about that today too.
Just understand where Mike Trout is in his career. Those fan bases, they don't have hope. Those fan bases don't have a direction out. Those fan bases don't have something that is their North Star. You do. Because you have Corbin Carroll. You have Ketel Marte. And that is your way out. That is your way to fixing this. Build a roster around those 2 guys. And oh, by the way, you have a 3rd player on this list in Perdomo that deserves to be in that conversation. And we've talked about Gabby Moreno as another young player on this core. And you're certainly hopeful that Jordan Lawler is going to join that group and be somebody that you can count on. And you've got Tommy Troy, who you're promoting through the ranks.
You also would have had 4 had you held on to one of them at the trade.
Well, Suarez is on the list, right? I think he's in the
37.
Yeah, he's in the top 50 as well. So you would have had another player. But that's why I think it's fair to say you can look at 2025 and say you just had some bad luck go against you. You had some bad injuries. You didn't play well. But you don't have to go completely back to the drawing board, erase everything, and start over. You don't have to do what Colorado's been doing for a half decade, if not longer. You don't have to do what St. Louis is going to do. St. Louis is going to go back to the drawing board. The White Sox, I think they're still at the drawing board. There's nothing on the whiteboard. They can borrow ours if they'd like. The Angels, what does their whiteboard look like? The Diamondbacks' whiteboard is simple. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, Geraldo Perdomo, Gabby Moreno. This young core of prospects that they have that could be here sooner rather than later. You are not working from the ground floor. What's that old saying? Somebody's born on third base, right? You're set up already, what? With a single, a double? You're not standing in the batter's box trying to rebuild this thing. You've got a little bit of a head start because you have something that other teams, most other teams, only 4 other teams share this distinction with you. You've got 2 superstars that are considered in the top 20 best players in all of baseball. Don't take that for granted. And that is why you cannot slam this window shut. That is why 2026 can still matter because you have those 2 players and you want to maximize what you do with those 2 players on your team.